Alright, so one of the things I've done while stuck in the house is compile a list of modifications I have done to the A4. Now for all future modifications I plan to film videos about each thing separately, but of course I've already done a fair few mods to the car and today's video is simply just going over it. So what I'm going to show you is through everything I've done. I've probably spoken about most of it in other videos, but I wanted to just establish a video that had a baseline that explained everything that is so far done to the car as of today's date, which is the 3rd of May 2020. So here's the A4. It's a 2014 S-Line 2.0 turbo Quattro DSG. Yes, we got the DSG transmission, not the CVT in Australia here. So it has a pretty nice trans and it actually goes all right. So let's get into the mods and start from the top and work our way down. And I'll also mention the things that I want to do at the end. So yes, cool. So probably one of the first modifications to note that I did was the Night Eye LED fog light conversion. So the fog lights are now a 2500 Kelvin LED bulb and they are super bright. And of course, continuing on with the theme of converting things to LEDs, I've also converted the rear reversing lights to LED bulbs. Next, and probably my least favorite / next modification to change is Audi underdoor projector lights. I just simply don't like the way they look. They aren't genuine and I just genuinely don't like the projector lights. Next would have to be probably one of my all-time favorite modifications that I will do to any car I ever own, probably from now on, is a dash camera. This is the Viafo A119 V3 dash camera, hardwired with parking mode and GPS. So it basically means it's constantly tracking speed for the videos, so you could fight speeding tickets if it was falsely accused. It also has parking mode, which is buffered, so if someone hits your car whilst you're parked, there'll be a video of it. It's pretty simple. It saved me once before on my old, actually saved me twice on my old car. This one hasn't had any use just yet, but it has taken some pretty cool videos which have been useful to keep. And whilst we're looking in the interior, I have converted all of the headliner to LEDs, as well as the footwells to blue LEDs, and same of course in the back. And with the whole LED conversion, as well as the fog lights, I have converted the stock xenon globes to an upgraded 6000 Kelvin Supernova HID globe. Not only are these a much nicer color temperature than the factory globes, they're also significantly brighter and match in perfectly with the fog lights, which are now LEDs of course. I did also at one point have a K&N High Flow Typhoon open air intake. However, I decided against it because these specific car, this one here, has a MAP sensor in the intake manifold instead of the MAF sensor on the intake tubing there, and basically it made it fit pretty poorly in the car. And again, with our laws locally, it's not really the most legal thing to have on the car, so I've gone back to the closed style factory box, which is fully legal, and just stuck a K&N high flow filter in it. The factory box on these cars aren't very restrictive, so to me, it doesn't really matter. I also have the darkest legal window tint we're allowed to have in Victoria, Australia. On the back of the car here, we see the S4 diffuser, and this is basically a direct swap off an S4 straight onto an A4 S-Line, as they share the same rear bumper. This also leads me on to my next point, which is the custom exhaust. It's a rear muffler delete to split off into the two pipes, and I've replaced the first muffler with a bigger muffler, so this car is actually relatively quiet. Here's a cold start I filmed on a GoPro. I did also have a carbon fiber boot lip spoiler on the back of the car, but have decided against it as my car actually isn't really all that aggressive yet and I have no other carbon fiber, so in my opinion it looked out of place. I think I'll be keeping it a much more simple and clean build and staying away from the carbon. I also bought carbon fiber mirror housings to replace the factory color-coded ones, however also decided against them for the lack of carbon on the car, and will instead opt for a silver or a matte silver S-Line style cover. The mirrors also have sequential indicators installed inside of them. I've also converted the front and back Audi logos to gloss black, as well as deleting the A4 and the 2.0 turbo and the Quattro badge off the back of the car. Please ignore the rusty rotors, I simply just washed the car, but as you might have seen in a previous video, I sprayed the dust shields and the calipers gloss black and matte silver, and have just recently applied a clear coat over them. And as you can see, they look extremely clean after a wash. Super happy with that. It looks really nice, and really it's a simple mod that makes the wheels look so much nicer. These Audi rotors will be due for replacement, more on that soon. And I've already filmed this a few times throughout this video, but I've also converted the front grille to an RS style grille and painted the fog light surround grills in gloss black to match. That is such a simple mod, but painting those fog light surrounds makes such a difference to the front of the car. And if it hasn't been obvious enough throughout the video, the car is lowered on SoloWorks coilovers. I am getting new rims soon, as I just sort of previously hinted at, so I do plan to go lower in the rear, but for now this is my ride height until I get those new wheels installed. So that pretty much concludes it for physical modifications I've done so far. I've also done a lot of VCDS coding or through an OBD11. Thanks to Josh for lending me his OBD11 Pro. I'm going to go through some of the coding modifications I've made so far to this car just to sort of improve its daily drivability and just some changes I really like. My first and absolute favorite is auto stop start memory. That means when the car gets turned on, the auto stop start remembers what it was last on, which is for always turned off, because there's nothing worse than leaving a car mate and people thinking you've stalled simply because your car's just trying to save fuel. Another coding change I've made is needle sweep when starting the car. And whilst we're in the dash area, one other change I've made is activating the lap timer, which gives you access to the engine's oil temperature. Another coding change I have made is to disable the daytime running lights ability to dim. This is really not necessary, and when you have upgraded HID globes and LED fog lights, it hardly makes any difference in terms of the brightness of the headlights in front of the car. It just simply makes it look much more aggressive with these lights on at full brightness the whole time. And also, in saying that, as a safety precaution, my front indicators are also LED converted with some extremely bright globes, so there is no way known people won't be able to see them even with the daytime running lights at full brightness. As you can see, it's still very obvious. The sequential mirror indicators are also substantially brighter than the OEM ones, so there's very limited chance people don't see me indicating. So I think that pretty well covers all of my current modifications to the A4. Now let's talk about some of the future modifications that are coming in the near future. I've opted to buy some new wheels, so in the coming weeks I will have Koya's SF06 rim. Now, I was going to go for a 20x10 ET40, which is a very common size people run on these A4s. However, I have heard issues of people with these sorts of coilovers, which aren't adjustable dampening, running into issues in the rear with the rim just protruding a little bit too much and the face of the rim clipping the guard liner. Now, I'm not too concerned about the inside of the guard getting some paint damage. However, I don't want to chip the face of a powder coated rim, so I've opted for a 20x9.5 ET42 rim from Koya, and that does share the same face as the 20x10, so it simply means the wheels won't fit as aggressive, but I think it will be a much better fit for a car that I fully intend to drive fully loaded with these coilovers really low, and I shouldn't have to concern about damaging the face of my rims or the guards. And also, on the topic of rims, I am opting to run some very cheap tires, purely because I'm going to have to run camber on them to make them clear the guards, and aesthetically I like the look of a couple of degrees of camber, which is going to obviously wear the tires out pretty quick. This isn't a great handling car. This is simply just a cruiser that's going to look nice when it's done, so I'm not too concerned about the performance of tires as long as I pick something that is reputable in terms of longevity and safety. I do fully anticipate running a front splitter. Ewing Aero here in Australia offer a front splitter which only adds about 5mm of clearance, only reduces the clearance at the front by about 5mm. So I'm going to be opting for that in just a gloss black. It will match the grille and the fog light surrounds perfectly and make the overall look of the front of the car significantly more aggressive, and I'm super keen for that. In terms of performance, this car is somewhat lacking, especially compared to my R36. It is a bit slower. So to combat that, being a turbo car, I'm going to go for an an ECU and DSG tune, which is something I didn't see worthwhile in the R36 due to minimal gains of probably 13 to 10 kilowatt at the wheels. In a car like this, I could probably expect to see between high 30s to 45 kilowatt at the wheels gain just from a tune. So that will be coming in the very near future. An ECU and DSG tune from eTuners Motorsports in Australia. Hit them up if you're in Victoria. And I'm still on the edge, be opting for possibly a crackle map, depending on how aggressive it is and how it sounds. I just want it to be subtle. Saying that I don't anticipate for this car to handle too great, I do plan to add a rear sway bar just to encourage the car to, say, oversteer instead of understeer. There's a company here in Australia that makes a rear sway bar for this, and I am very heavily considering that as an option to upgrade in the future. I've already mentioned it once in this video, but I fully anticipate getting rid of the Audi rings on the ground there. As you can see, they're not even symmetrical. It doesn't look good at all. And a simple white puddle light would look way better down there. Matte silver mirror housings are also on the to-do list to match the RS4 style mirrors. I think that's going to tie in very nicely with the wheels, which I should also mention I've opted for gloss silver. I think black really takes away from a car like this. Somewhat contrary to what I just said, I do plan to put a very light tint on these taillights just to make them look a little less offensive and upfront. Plus, I've had countless complaints that my brake lights are excessively bright, so just dulling those down a little and making these not so red, perhaps like the Land Cruiser lights you can see in the background, that would be absolutely perfect for me. And last but not least, as you can see, my terrible looking rotors at the moment, both the wheels and the brake rotors themselves, I do anticipate when I am due for rotors and pads to upgrade to a slotted style. It's going to look way cleaner behind the 20-inch rims. It'll be a really open design face. So slotted rotors and upgraded pads are definitely on the list of things to upgrade on this car. So there we have it, everything I've done so far to the A4 and everything I anticipate doing in the near future. So just quickly to recap, we have the 20-inch rims coming soon. We also have the front splitter coming soon. We'll do an ECU and DSG tune, so it will perform much better and be much more drivable with that DSG tune. I may be anticipating doing a rear sway bar to promote oversteer instead of understeer. Perhaps these cheap front tires are what is causing the understeer to begin with, so I'll see when I get my new tires on the new 20s. As well as that, I need to change out the puddle lights under the doors to just a simple white LED. I want to change the mirror housings to silver, which will tie in nicely with the silver trim, and the silver rims, which will be obviously coming in the near future. And pretty much besides that, it's just the tail light tint and the slotted rotors. So I should also mention this car is soon to be due for a DSG tune, but I'm going to, a DSG service, but I'm going to do that earlier rather than later because it also is due for a radiator due to a coolant leak I've found recently. So it's getting a radiator, a DSG service, brake fluid and new spark plugs pretty soon, and then we'll look at doing the DSG and ECU tune in the near future. But there we have it, that's my A4. Hope you like the car. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy the future modifications that are to come to the car. I didn't really want to go with a crazy carbon covered car. I think it's just going to look really clean with all the gloss black stuff on the front, all the silver stuff on the side, and the back looks pretty aggressive now. I think just tail light tint and a little bit more low with more aggressive wheel fitment is going to look extremely nice from the back. There we have it though. That's my A4. If you like this video, make sure you chuck a like on it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video because that's most likely going to be about my wheels, which are due to be here in the next couple of weeks.